July 1st, 2011, from the stylish high-tech underground studios of Ribbit Media in dazed and confused Warwick, Rhode Island, this is NewsUndies. For July 1st, 2011, this is NewsUndies, all the news that shouldn't be news. Pig, sheep, and chicken have the week off for the upcoming holiday. I hear they're going to a barbecue. Should be fun. I'm Paul Torville with this headache. New York Representative Anthony Weiner finally, mercifully, admits it was his junk. Tornadoes surprise Springfield, Mass. Not climate scientists. Bachmann indignantly reads resume to Wallace in response to relevant question. First time for everything, Texas Governor Perry says he will think. Former Illinois governor convicted on 17 of 20 counts. Fox News fails to report that Jon Stewart is a comedian. New York Representative Anthony Weiner finally, mercifully, resigns. Casey Anthony trial, Casey's not the only nutbag in the courtroom. Public stunned by Blagojevich, being stunned by conviction. Weiner to resume pre-politics career as sophomoric self-referential punchline. Here's Ollie Oliphant with a list of people who, like Mr. Takagi, will not be joining us for the rest of their lives.
Yes, well, Jack Kevorkian, euthanasia advocate. Andrew Gold, songwriter. James Arness, actor. Wally Boag, performer. Betty Taylor, performer. Shrek, the Kiwi sheep. Alan Rubin, trumpeter. Clarence Clemens, saxophonist. Ryan Dunn, jackass star. Peter Falk, actor. And that's who's dead. Quite.
Thanks, Ollie. Bristol Palin's memoir. Despite the fact that Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid has canceled the recess normally scheduled around the 4th of July in order to try to force a resolution to the debt ceiling mess, it seems no one is really interested in giving up any ground. Not a single entitlement or program can be cut, and not a single additional penny of tax can be raised. So after decades of diverting funds from maintenance of roads and bridges into the coffers of defense contractors, borrowing against Social Security and Medicare Medicaid with no real expectation of repayment, and keeping the U.S. Armed Forces unnecessarily busy interfering in the private affairs of sovereign nations, all the while cutting taxes, the U.S. government has the nerve to call MasterCard and ask for an increase of its credit limit. That is, without having a supporting job sufficient to carry the debt they already carry. Of course, the lender says, sure. You want to borrow more? Absolutely. We've always liked the neoclassical architecture of your iconic federal buildings. In case you've been a contender for the 2012 GOP presidential spot, or a member of some other class of woefully misinformed loudmouth douche nozzles, you couldn't help but notice all the rainbows in New York. The New York Legislature approved marriage equality for same-sex couples. Governor Cuomo signed the bill into law, and before the tip of the governor's pen left the page, the husky whooping and squealing shrieks had begun. You'd think an all-gay soccer team from Soho just won the World Cup, the way the entire frickin' world lost its shit. Compounding the celebratory insanity was the fact that the passage of the law came just in time for New York City's Gay Pride Parade. Naturally, Pat Robertson commented on this. He said, oh, yeah, here it is. Blah, 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 God. Blah, blah, blah will destroy us all. Idiot. John Huntsman, former Utah governor, Mormon, former U.S. ambassador to China, and current GOP presidential hopeful, has declared that issues, not religion, will decide the GOP race. Well, that's fine, since the bulk of the 2012 GOP candidates who stand any chance of winning are all Christians of one stripe or another. Of course, with all the gaffes going around in the 2012 GOP field, it's like they've got a bunch of retarded right-wing Biden clones. And the one almost too retarded to run? Sarah Palin. Really, I'd like to see her run. With her Paul Revere's bells and everything. I mean, Michelle Bachmann may be the most intellectually challenged person to occupy a seat in the Congress in the 21st century, but there's a powerful sort of hypoxia that seems to be circulating around the GOP field. Really, given the current set of GOP candidates, I don't see how Obama can lose. But if he seasons his foot properly and is sufficiently peckish, perhaps he could lose. On June 9th, 2011, Harold Camping suffered a stroke and was hospitalized. Harold Camping, as you may recall, was the California fringe Christian preacher who said Judgment Day would occur May 21st, and that the Bible guarantees it. As you may have noticed, the Bible-guaranteed rapture did not happen. Here's NewsUndies senior religion correspondent, Horse, to tell us more. Horse?
Well, let's start with the obvious part. There are no gods. As a consequence of that fact, any book purported to be the word of a god must necessarily be fictional and, in all likelihood, fraudulent.
Thanks, Horse. You could have tarted that up a little. Will Camping live to see his latest October rapture prediction also fail? Frankly, I don't know. And really, with drunken jackass stars driving into trees at 130 miles an hour and in the process destroying a car that costs more than many Americans can afford to pay for a house, who cares about a stain like Harold Camping? The Pope now has a Twitter account, which has been set up to, reportedly, reach a younger global audience. Now, it seems to me that reaching a younger audience has been the problem all along, but what do I know? Anyway, His Holiness tweeted, quote, "Dear friends, I just launched www.news.va. Praised be our Lord, Jesus Christ. With my prayers and blessings, Benedictus XVI." End quote. Jesus Christ is right. iCloud. As the Space Shuttle program winds down, various media outlets are blathering wistfully about the shuttle and its myriad accomplishments and breakthroughs, and spending a little less time on the failings of the program because, well, probably because they're a little tired of it after 30 years. While the major news outlets talk about the shuttle program being 30 years old, that doesn't really tell the whole story. The Space Shuttle as we know it was actually approved by President Richard Nixon back in 1972. So now they're talking about how many tiles there are and how many miles they've gone and on and on and on. The thing they seem to be missing is the fact that the ability to return anything other than a few people and trinkets from low Earth orbit ends when Endeavour comes home in a few weeks. Oh well, why would we want to return anything from low Earth orbit? I mean, honestly. The U.S. Army has decided, all by itself, that the beret is a stupid, pointless, and impractical hat. It has not, unfortunately, figured out that hats generally are not particularly practical. We expect that light bulb to turn on right around the turn of the next century. Or the one after that. Maybe. The beret is being replaced with the patrol cap, which the beret replaced back in 2001. Well, I mean, at least the patrol cap has a visor. Mark Halperin. John F. Kennedy International Airport near New York City has had its share of excitement in recent months. Back in April, an Air France A380 clipped the tail of a Comair regional jet, spinning at almost 90 degrees on the tarmac. Dow! Then, toward the end of June, a taxiing Egypt Air jet and a Lufthansa jet attempting to take off narrowly avoided catastrophe when the Egypt Air jet just appeared on the runway in front of Lufthansa. Oops! Well, now? Well, this is just priceless. 78 turtles, specifically diamondback terrapins, no relation to the baseball team or the bicycle brand, made their way out onto the runway, apparently looking for a place to deposit their eggs. They were probably not looking for a place to get busy and or freaky, as some have suggested. According to the folks who know about such things, these turtles lay their eggs in sandy soil, which was on the other side of the runway from where they started. No word yet on which side the turtles were deposited on. So, Cars 2 has finally come out, and it's done better at the box office than many expected. The biggest naysayers? Big oil. The environmental message of Cars 2 and the positioning of the fictional movie world's oil magnates as the villains has got the real oil magnates seeing red. What's surprising is that the most common grumbling tearing down Pixar for the choice isn't coming from the major oil companies or regular film critics. It's coming from bloggers at the Wall Street Journal, townhall.com, and of all places, ChristianityToday.com. Wow. Townhall.com's Kevin Glass goes so far as to say, quote, "If you are concerned about letting left-wing environmentalism infect your kids, Cars 2 should be easy enough to avoid," end quote. And, if your kids are getting edgy this weekend, you could just send them outside for a few hours instead of infecting them with enviro-propaganda, end quote. If you were wondering about whether townhall.com has its own winged agenda to push, your sense of the obvious is failing you. Finally, and I do mean finally, we all saw this coming, didn't we? A survey conducted at Temple University sought to discover why women fake orgasms. The survey involved over 360 women aged 18 to 32, and they were asked about their reasons for faking, issues with past relationships, and their feelings about intimacy. Many of the study participants reportedly faked orgasms to hide their own fear of intimacy or sexual inadequacy. There was also a substantial contingent of respondents who reported a desire to just get it over with. A few reported that acting excited made them excited and, in the end, heightened their sexual pleasure. In another study, some 25% of men reported faking orgasms. I suppose they must be good actors, or with partners who are, easily fooled. The bottom line seems to be the overwhelming majority of women surveyed did not fake orgasms to coddle their partner's fragile egos. That's right, fellas. She just don't care. Ultimately, she's probably at least as much of a head case about sex as you are. Well, that's all for this edition of News Undies. Remember, News Undies is a monthly show, and we'll be back on Friday, August 5th with fresh undies. If you see news that shouldn't be news, email your story tips to undies@newsundies.com. Seriously, it's a functional email address. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm Paul Torville. After that, I might be touring the nation in a bus plastered with my name, visiting places that are only interesting if one happens to be running for president, all the while denying that I'm running for office. You should get a mug like this. You know where you could get one of these? Neither do I. Bam! I didn't think I was going to get all the way through that. Okay, Look Who's Dead intro. 3, 2, 1, mark.